Yes, hello everyone. Welcome back to another interview here on An Cluiche with me, Séamus Brady, your host. For this one, I am joined by Gráinne McElwain, the presenter for GAA Go this year, and of course, plenty of work with Sky Sports, TG Cahar, all the ones you could list down through the years. Delighted to have you on the show, Gráinne. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to do this interview.
Gurn míle maigad, Séamus. Looking forward to it. Thanks for asking me.
No problem at all. Well, first things first, you're a Monaghan woman. You have a big game coming up this weekend against Roscommon at Dr. Hyde Park. That's a massive clash. How are you feeling heading into it?
Yeah, we always have to be confident when you're in Monaghan, but yeah, it's a massive clash because both teams need the points. Both teams want to stay in Division 1, and I'd say both teams are targeting a win in this game to kind of help them on that path to stay in Division 1. So from Monaghan's perspective, it's been challenging that they've lost so many players. There's been more injury woes. I think Ryan McInnesby, Stephen O'Hanlon went off the last day. So you're a bit concerned about that. And there's still a lot of players to come back, like some of the old brigade, as they would say, like the Conor McManuses, the Darren Hughes of this world. They still have to come back, Conor McCarthy and stuff. So there's been a lot of injuries that hasn't helped Vinnie Corey's plight at all, but definitely it's a massive game at the weekend, and you get a sense whoever wins that will be feeling pretty good. Whoever loses that, it's an uphill task. But being from Monaghan, we're not going to panic. The last couple of years has gone down to the final day, so if it's the final day again, it's the final day again. I think we had the euphoria of winning against Dublin the first time, but it's also worth noting as well, they've met the three strongest teams as well in the start of their campaign, without all their seasoned players, and they've been trying a lot of new players. And I think what's really interesting for the league as well, Séamus, is that you're caught between, say, Derry are putting a very, very strong team out. We saw Kerry putting a very strong team out against Mayo, but for a lot of other teams, they're trying to find players, like the likes of Tyrone are trying to find new players, Monaghan are trying to find new players, Roscommon as well. So it's kind of that balancing act trying to find those new players for your championship, because you need a depth of squad for championship, and also trying to get those points to stay in Division 1. So we're always confident in Monaghan, Séamus. So yes, we're gonna stay up. Let's be positive.
Well, that's it. And I've learned the hard way not to write you off. I predicted Monaghan would go down in 2022, and then not only did you not go down, you relegated Dublin instead.
Yes.
So very much learned the hard way not to back against them.
Yeah.
You're right. For Roscommon, it's massive as well, because Roscommon after this game have to face Kerry, Derry, and Mayo. Like that's massive when you're thinking about where the points going to come from for them. Like they've been hit hard. Players like Kieran Murta and everything stepping away from the panel over the winter. Out of the league so far, which is the team that has kind of impressed you the most so far? We obviously have Louth stepping up in Division 2.
Yeah, I think Division 2 is
Division 3.
Division 2 is amazing as well. I think the Ulster teams have been really strong. Like Donegal and Armagh have been very, very impressive in Division 2. Division 1, you have to say Derry and Kerry have been so impressive. They've just really stood out. I think for Kildare, it's been a really challenging time for them as well, because it's a team very low on confidence, and trying to turn that around in such a short space of time. It's different now because the championship is upon us. I think is it like 7 or 8 weeks until the actual first round of the championship starts. So that's not a long time for things that aren't going well within your camp to sort out. So it's a difficult time for Kildare, and I don't think it helps that there's so much pressure put on them from outside noise as well. So it's trying to deal with that. It's a difficult task for Glenryan, and their clash now, of course, with Meath at the weekend is huge. Absolutely huge. And a performance, I think, is what he's going to be really looking for, like a massive performance from them. And you hope for their sake that they get that. So there's been a lot of impressive teams. The teams are taking the league really, really seriously. Because you have to, and there's just so much at stake, particularly in Division 2 as well. And I think then the other story, of course, is Cork. They're in trouble too. So it hasn't been easy for those teams that are trying to find the new players at balance and trying to actually get a win. It's so difficult because the teams are so even. There's so many wins have happened just with 1 point, or teams have just lost by a point. So there's been a lot of impressive teams, a lot of storylines. But I think this weekend will tell a lot in where teams are going to go.
Well, that's it. Again, the craziest thing is that in Division 3, which must be a first for the Allianz League, we have a possibility where we could have 3 teams after 4 rounds who still haven't won a game.
Yeah.
Like, they would still be on 0 points. So that is crazy in that regard. That division's very split. Cork is definitely very interesting. I was saying this on previews that I think Cork, one of the issues that they're having is they were set up last year as kind of the underdogs, and they put together a team that could beat a Mayo or a Roscommon. But then when the onus is on them to go and attack a team, they have pretty much the same 15 lads out, and they find it kind of hard to go for a team and undo a team the way that a team would sit off them, like for example Cavan did, like for example Louth did. They find that difficult. But from your own personal perspective, you're heading into 2024, you're anchoring for GAA Go again. You have a hell of a team of pundits with you: Michael Murphy, Mark O'Shea, Paddy Andrews and Aaron Kernan for the football, John Bubbles O'Dwyer, Séamus Hickey, Owen Callaghan, Tommy Walsh and Richie Hogan for the hurling. I mean, that's a hell of a star-studded lineup.
It's a brilliant lineup, and they're all great guys. I'm not just saying that because I work with them, but they are. We have lots of fun, Séamus, which I think is really important that you do when you actually go to work. And I always say it's such a privilege to be on that sideline and to be involved with our Gaelic games. And we have a lot of fun chatting away and hearing the stories. And the lads obviously some of them know each other quite well as well, because they would have been in college together and obviously played against each other. So there's always lots of stories, some that we say on GAA Go, some that we say off camera because we can't say them on live TV. But it's great. It's great getting their insights, and that's what I love about it. And I think that's what we're trying to do as well on GAA Go, is that we're given insights from players that have just recently retired and getting their insight to what that dressing room is like. Because for those players, they still know a lot of the players that are playing. And it's that obviously emotion for them as well, where they're like, gosh, for some of them, they could be still playing if they wanted to. And for others, it's like, yes, we've stepped back and maybe, they've gone a different trajectory and a different path now. But it's great fun, and I love hearing what they have to say about their time playing with their county, and also how they feel other counties are and other management styles and transitions that we're seeing on the screen or seeing actually at the pitch. Like, what's their thoughts on them?
Yeah, no, it's a deadly position to be in. Like, there's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
One thing that actually surprised me when I was doing my research for this interview was that you were actually born in Alberta in Canada. Is that correct? And then,
that is it. Yeah, I was born in Edmonton, Alberta. So my dad played in a band called The Ventures, and him and my mom went over to Canada, and they stayed for like 7 or 8 years, and I was born there. And then basically the band decided we'll take a wee break, and mom and dad said, do you know what, if they're taking a break, let's just go back to Monaghan and see what happens. So they went back, and the band never got back together, and that was it. We settled. Well, my mom and dad are both from Monaghan, so we settled back in Monaghan. So in Ballinode, near Scottstown in County Monaghan. So it was a townie. First of all, I lived in Monaghan town for a while, and then we moved out to Ballinode. So it's a great kind. I'm very proud to come from Monaghan. I love being from there. So I've early memories of tobogganing, because there's obviously loads of winter in Canada. And I just remember early memories of going down that toboggan, like with all the snow. So that was nice. We don't get very much snow here now, unfortunately, but that was kind of very early memories of that and of being in Canada.
Yeah, no, I think we had that one year, didn't we, in like 2011, where the snow came like I'd never seen before and haven't seen since.
But my kids, I live in Galway now, and my kids, you don't get snow in Galway because we just live by the sea. So they're like, every time there's snow, if it's a Monaghan, we're going to Monaghan. We want to go see the snow. So I'm like, it's not that heavy though. So by the time we get there, it'll be gone. But
100%. And you mentioned that you were obviously from Scottstown as well. A club man of yours, Rory Beggan, absolutely smashing it in his NFL trials. He keeping a close tab on that.
Absolutely. And we all wish Rory the very best of luck. I mean, what a fabulous opportunity to get to go and do this in NFL. And I really hope that it works out for him. He has been such a servant to Monaghan GAA and Scottstown GAA. Great guy, and very humble, very hardworking. And he's got there, he's grasped the opportunity, and I hope that it goes well for him over there. But to get there, it's not easy. You've put in a lot of years of hard work. And I do think when opportunities arise, it's usually people that grab them or people that have worked very hard to get there. Like, it just doesn't happen overnight, and success isn't an overnight thing. You work very hard to get there. So for Rory, it's been a lot of practice, a lot of work, and it's a huge honor to get asked to be in that position to get there. So hopefully he can go the step and get a team over there and actually become involved and be that kicker in one of those teams over in America.
Yeah, it would be absolutely incredible if he was to do it. And there's no doubt he's always had the boot. Like, I distinctly remember Began kicking a free at Croke Park against Dublin in the league in 2020 from about 70 metres out. And I remember being like, that's low-key the best free I've ever seen kicked.
Just really calm. Like, you know, the higher the pressure, it's like, bring it on. That's what I really feel about him. You know, and anyone that operates at that level, free takers, you know, penalty takers, anything like that, like, at that level, it's like that the higher it is, the more pressure involved, just nearly the more calmer they seem to look. Maybe it's a big act, you wouldn't know, maybe it's an act, but for some of them, but I just have so much admiration for them because they just look so cool, calm and collected, and he rarely ever disappoints, Rory. Like, he just at high pressure stakes, even for the club last year in the Ulster Championship, you know, he just stood up and took those pressure frees when needed.
That's it. I mean, his winner against Kilcoo is a perfect example. Taking you back to when you started out on this road. So obviously I read that you began on this journey with your local radio station. So you're reporting on sports, bit of music and the gaeilge, of course, while also doing match reports for the Northern Standard. So this was obviously your first introduction into the whole world of sports media.
Yes. So I got a job. I basically when I was in transition year, I ended up doing my Tahi Ibra, my work experience in Northern Sound in the radio station. That was great. It was kind of when you're doing local things, like if it's a big organization, you only get to do certain things. But for me, because we're so short staffed, it's like, do this, do that, get reports. I ended up actually doing the sport on a radio. I think it was a lunchtime radio or something. Like, I did it up, which was great, which probably doesn't happen very often when you're like 16, but I got doing that at the time. It was amazing. And then when I went to college, I got a job working at the weekends, basically doing a radio program, and it was all sports. And that was great. So you're introduced and obviously interviewing people, reacting, learning on the job, which was great. And I also was PRO of my club. So I would have been involved. Obviously, as PRO, you kind of do all the media stuff. But at that time, a lot of as well was just match reports. So you'd been going to games. You're going to the games anyhow, and you're just doing match reports. And they were all published in the Northern Standard on the Thursday. So it was great. Like, you were really immersed in the whole game and interviewing people. And for a lot of the night were notes, you know, the Scottstown notes or whatever. So you were writing in for them and stuff like that. That was your big job every week to put into the Northern Standard, because actually we all know locally it's like what's happening in the locality. So everybody reads those notes first. So yeah, it was great. I enjoyed it. You know, that was your job. You just did it. Never thought it was going to lead to where I was now, Séamus, to be honest. You know, it was just something I enjoyed doing. I liked doing it. And yeah, it was just something that I was doing at the time.
Yeah, no, and like, it was a great introduction, I've no doubt, into that. Like, I've done work myself with Dublin, and you just meet people in the background that are just incredible people that do this purely on a volunteer basis because they love the sport, and you meet real people are the backbone of the GAA, as they always say.
Yeah.
You did take a detour from it, and you ended up as a secondary school teacher for a short while in Monaghan and in Castleknock in Dublin. And then I read that it was an ad on a newspaper that you saw advertising for Nematon.
Exactly.
And that's how you pivoted over?
So I remember I didn't want to teach for forever. I remember that. So I was in America for the summer before my dip began, and my father actually sent off all the paperwork for it, because I was like, I don't know, I was having a good time in America. I was like, going, I don't want to come back. I was near Boston. That's where I was, in Boston. And I was like, oh no, I'd like to stay here, but I was 21 and my dad was like, no, you have to come back, get a sensible job and get a qualification. So teaching would be in my family, and I would be a lot of primary school teachers, secondary school teachers. So applied for the dip and I got it in UCD. So I came back and did the dip, and then I was teaching then for a few years, and I did love teaching. I loved the kids. I had good crack with them, and I taught in Castleknock Community College, and that's where Paddy Andrews went. Now, I didn't teach Paddy Andrews, but Paddy Andrews was there. And I always joke with Paddy, everyone was talking about how great a footballer Paddy Andrews was. So that's what I remember about Paddy Andrews. So I stayed there a couple of years, and I just kind of always knew I just was like, you know, I'm in my 20s. I actually want to go and try something else. I don't want to be here till I'm in my 60s and go, gosh, I wish I should have, could have regrets. So I had forgotten, it was all this, we talk about fate. I had forgotten about my essays for my 5th year's honours class, and I literally had nothing with me. I'd left them at home. So I went down, photocopier that time, and was just literally taking out phrases from Fondest, which was an Irish language newspaper at that time. And this is in the early noughties. So this was, I would said, right, I'll find out what's, just we were going to go through phrases and stuff. And the page that I opened, actually at the bottom of it, they had an ad. They were looking for a researcher, sports researcher down in Nematon in An Rhine, County Fort Larga. And I'd never heard of Nematon. I'd never heard of An Rhine and Port Larga. And I just thought that's interesting though, because it's sports. So I decided that night when I went home, had the essays anyway. We did our work that I was supposed to do with my 5th year's honours. And then I decided that night, right, I'm going to apply for this job and see where it goes. And literally within 6 weeks, I'd left my full-time pensionable teaching job in Dublin and had moved down to Ring and was living in Dungarvan in Waterford, and literally started in this wild adventure of going to matches, and worked as a researcher, worked as a producer, director, and then presenter. So it's been brilliant, Séamus, because I got to see so many different avenues of working in sport. And it wasn't just GAA, like I worked on soccer, rugby, horse racing, every type of sport as well. We covered everything. So it has been a really fun journey.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I mean, TG4, I absolutely admire them. The programs they produce, Laker Gale, like everything like that, where you genuinely fall in love with the person who is in the Laker Gale. Like Tony Scullion's, we watched that there. He's been an interview guest on. I didn't think I could like him more, but after watching his Laker Gale, definitely do like him more.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. You must have had a few questionable acquaintances, shall we say, when you did pivot back into the sports media from your teaching job. Few people that thought, like, what are you doing?
It was interesting when I left my full-time pensionable job. It was funny, I met teachers who said to me, like, what are you doing? Are you mad? Like, leaving your full-time pensionable job? And then I had the other scale where people go, my God, you're so right. If I was younger, I would do the exact same things. And at that time, like, I had no mortgage, I had no kids, I had no relationship that I was leaving behind. So it was just me making this leap by myself. But I'm a really big believer in having no regrets and take that leap, leap and the net will appear. I really, really strongly believe that. And I think it's every part of your body, if something's telling you to do it. For me, it was like, it's a really good opportunity to do this. And I'm also like, well, what's the worst that can happen? It doesn't work out and I'll go back to teach, but at least I've tried something. And that was my philosophy, that I was like, if it doesn't work out, how bad? You'll always learn something. I think you'll always learn something from every type of job that you do. You bring what you've learned with you to the next job. So it wasn't a big decision for me, I must say. It didn't take me long to make. But it was just fun, it was so different. Like, you're just literally leaving something so structured to know what was doing every day to something like, it was like chaos. Like, you just were like, God knows where you were going to be. It was all around the country. And I had a little Ford Fiesta at the time, and that poor Ford Fiesta went from Waterford to Antrim, to Cork to West Kerry, did loads and loads of miles for me. And then I just decided I needed to get a bigger car and a stronger car. But no, it was fantastic times. It was great people, worked with great people. We were all really immersed in doing sport through the Irish language as well. That was really tábhacht duine. And loved it. Met great people. I met great contacts as well, and people, that I would have worked on Laker Gale as well. And it was just so lovely to get to know people. And at the time when I started, actually, it was gorgeous because we actually spent 3 days with them, Séamus. So we did one like in Patspillane, and who else did we do to, like Nikki English? We went to them. They were so generous with their time. It was just so lovely that you got to actually go into their houses and they talked to us, and because we were all so young as well. So I think they were felt a bit sorry for us too, because we were like, oh no, we're just doing all this, man. She's want some food or anything, but they were just gorgeous people. And it's interesting how you meet people through the rest of your life. Like, that was 20 years ago and you're still meeting these people and you're chatting to them and they remember you as well. And you remember that involvement you had. So I would have been working as like an assistant producer, broadcast coordinator on those shoots and organizing. And gopher, basically just did everything you were asked to do. So, but great times, and learned an awful lot.
Yeah, no, I definitely say so. And like, you powered on from there, TG4, BBC, eirsport, RT, Sky Sports, GAA Go now. So it's been a hell of a journey. One of the things that I'm really interested in, apart from the fact that we actually have something common because I'm in the Ford Fiesta phase myself now. I have a Ford Fiesta myself. Is when you were moving up to the ranks, who was because I love asking this question because I've had it myself.
Yeah.
Who was the first person that you had to interview or you had to do a bit of work with where you were like completely starstruck?
I haven't really been starstruck by anybody, and I mean that in the nicest way, because I always look at people going, they're people, and they're first and foremost people. And I think if you were interviewing somebody and you're starstruck, you're not doing your job, because you're actually letting your emotions and getting involved in it. And I think it's really important that you recognize them as a people and that you relate to them, because I think a lot of people that are quite famous, they're very used to people being starstruck, and then it's kind of, they feel uncomfortable. So my whole belief is that people need to feel comfortable when they're in your company, and they need to feel comfortable when you're interviewing them and when you're asking them questions. And if you're starstruck, it's not a good look. That's just my opinion. But my very first and it's just, I suppose it's interesting saying it now, like, but my very first analyst that I had, so I basically did a screen test to become a presenter, and it was something I really wanted to do for Allianz Leagues, and it was actually for TG Cahir, which was the first one. They were doing Saturday nights. Now, it only lasted a year because then we lost the contract and it went to eirsport. But that time, I remember doing a screen test to do presenting for the Saturday night games. And I remember my very first game, Jarlath Burns was my analyst, So I have had so much time and respect from Jarlath since then, because he was so good to me on that night, because I was so nervous, and I just was like, oh my God, this is just, so just a side shimmy from what we're talking about, Séamus, but he actually, and I'm just thinking of now because he's going to be coming now president at the weekend, and Gershakna. He just was so good to me that night, as a presenter just starting out. So I think I've been very lucky to interview loads of different people. And then also I've done a lot of MC work as well. So you would have interviewed people like, say, like Gareth Thomas or something, the former Wales international, who was actually lovely. And what I found is that the people that you meet that are very successful in life, they're actually very, very humble people. And they're very decent people. They're very easy to talk to, and they're very open to the type of questions you ask them. Like, they're not precious, which is really nice. So I think I've just really enjoyed speaking to everyone that I've been able to speak to. And I also like speaking to people that aren't famous. I like speaking to the normal people. And what I love is, like, when we come to GAA players, like, their mums or dads or their partners, like, I love their stories, because my God, they put so much support, and they feel so much when their children are out playing. And it's like, they hear the abuse that you hear around the ground, which is disgraceful. And they have to deal with that. And, the players are maybe out in the pitch and they don't maybe hear that, or maybe are more accustomed to it, or attuned their ear to that they don't hear it. But I often feel that those are the people that need protection. And I think they're really interesting to talk to, as well as the people that are behind the players and that have helped them to get to this level too, and trainers and everybody else has helped people. And, there's in GAA particularly, like, we depend on volunteers. So there's volunteers that have come from the age of 6 years of age, like local people in the area, in the club, who don't get that recognition when players become super successful. But the players know what they've done to get them there. So I find talking to people like that really interesting, because I like talking to ordinary people. And I find everybody is. I haven't been starstruck yet. You never know. Maybe if I got to the Super Bowl or something like that, Séamus, maybe I would be a bit more starstruck, but not at the moment, no.
Yeah, no, it's a very, very good answer. And I completely agree with you on meeting the people that are behind these GAA players and everything like that. Which is why going down to Parnell Park, like, even for Dublin, you meet people who are like the heart and soul of what makes Parnell Park tick, and like the groundsmen that have been doing it for years and everything like that. So like, going back to your journey up, so obviously going through the companies that you've worked for, are there any moments that stick out in your memory as being moments where you really felt like you'd crossed the bridge, or you really felt like, okay, I feel like I've got my feet under the table here now? Moments that you had to kind of pinch yourself a little bit and be like, well, how have I ended up here?
Yeah, like, I know it's a cliche, but I do that every time I'm at the championship. I really do, Séamus, because it is such a privilege to do it. And like I would have done that with Pelna Mambio, the ladies football and TG Car. Like I loved working on the ladies football and TG Car because there was a real camaraderie there as well, because we knew all the players. You know, and the girls used to come over just we'd be interviewing, like you got to know them very, very well. So I loved being involved in that. And then the championship as well. And I think when I was working with Sky Sports, it was the time of COVID. You were very conscious that you were actually a conduit for a lot of people who were at home, that weren't actually meeting people, that actually, you know, you were talking to them. And the Gaelic Games was so important to them because it helped shorten the day, thinking of people that were living by themselves and maybe didn't have any family members nearby to go and visit them. So I remember thinking, you know, this is really important what we're doing here. And I'm very lucky to be the person that's anchoring this program and talking to the pundits. And we're trying to hopefully help somebody at home shorten that day for themselves. And then with GAA Go, it's just a privilege because we're on the sideline. You know, you're in the middle of the crowds, and we did a lot on GAA Go last season where, you know, we were on the pitch a lot. You know, we were in dressing rooms, we were among the players, and you really get a sense of the atmosphere and the occasion and how special our games are and how brilliant it is to be involved in them. And, you know, I always think my role as facilitator, you're trying to bring the best out of the pundits so that the viewer at home is going, gosh, that's really interesting, or I'm glad she asked that question. So you're kind of hoping that that's the job that you do, that people watching go, yeah, I know more than I did when I started. And I think that's really important when we sit down, when someone's invested their time to sit down and watch a program, you want to be showing that they learn something, because otherwise it's a waste of everybody's time. So you're trying to tap into the knowledge these guys have and just tell the people at home, like, why have they been so successful, or what should we be looking out for, or what tactics are we going to see, or why is such and such a person there, why are they not the other side of the pitch? So it's always a privilege, and I'm always very grateful and humble that I'm the person that's able to do that.
Without doubt. And like, I mean, very well said. One of the things that I loved, and this is just feedback from a spectator last season, I suppose, I loved the last thing that you did where I think it was Mark O'Shea, Paddy Andrews, and Michael Murphy all had a kick from the 21, or they all had a kick from, they all had a kick from somewhere. And it was gas watching just the dynamic between them and how they were kind of having a bit of banter with each other. And that was really refreshing to watch, because it isn't often that you see pundits have a shot in Croke Park at the end of the game.
And the thing is, they were like children from the start. We're like, we really want to do this. So it was great, like, you know, that they actually got to do that. And they were, it was good fun. It was a bit of fun, you know, and you could see that.
Yeah, no question about it. I guess Cúplaicist Oscuelga Mata sin Carcalor.
Okay, yeah. Fiber B.
Carcalor. So Rudella Kunik me August make down mo quid stale la high on Oglev show na Grev Tuma ambassador the shocked in the Gaeilge Gavilis a fihe. August ta an quid over dainto good. Dun Gaeilge go horror has to come and Luke class Gael. Shinna Notch, Vula Merlin a Kaileg on ambassador on the Gaeilge. Leshan O'Shea, Cúpla shocked in hin. I went to Tanavus on over Shogale.
Win me ansalt as an obershin, hahan sig morlam a bheith mar caihilar go cosisian áisiút in na Gaeilge agus an Gaeilge Corcan Keen sa chuman agus sin rud mór a bhí muid géirí anamh ón tús ná go méoch ambassador in na Gaeilge agin mar chumanú glas Gael mar tá golóir imróí mihin sin le Gaeilge agus nach méoch sé trothúil agus ionintach aon a sacu ecail don cuman ar fad agus bhí antá dearg linne leis an ambassador bhí agin. Bhí Paul Conroy agin, Paul Flanagan agus Sean O'Shea agus daoine álín, daoine uail, daoine atá géirí an Gaeilge Corcan Ceen agus spéis agus sa teanga agus sin an rud mhaithim se táiméid gcónaí chu an orid sin béim ar daoine nachhfuil sim acu sa Gaeilge agus atá géirí caibh nuas ar an Gaeilge agus nachhfuil sé níos fearr díriú ar rudí dearfacha agus daoine atá spéis acu sa Gaeilge. Agus sin rud a bhí go hálainn a bheith clé le caiithir le cosisian áisiúint in na Gaeilge. Agus ag fáil le headí Sean O'Shea chun a bheith linn, mar just céidí sé an Gaeilge Corcan Ceen agus tá sé sprágúil dún ar fad ghfuil a lehead John.
Na sin é, agus tá an cinál profil ag Sean O'Shea, mata sé ag leabhart an Gaeilge, mata daoine mar Ciarán Kilkenny, Louise Verhertig ag leabhart an Gaeilge, chuann sé spráige ar na daoine aga chun an Gaeilge a leabhart freisin, mar bheithann siad ar aléacra ag leabhart an Gaeilge. Is smína bhúntaach é, agus tá ansimime go me seo. Nuair raibh tú ag tosú amach idir garms na meán sport like to mé féinnig tú smó garm an sin. Ar a bhéin cinál rud áirithe a raibh agat a raibh tú ag éirí mar cinál like principles ví tú mar to mé géirí é seo a hógan isteach I mo garm like mar léirí tú le a chud freagraí an meas a léir duna himráí mar daoine agus gachud mar sin gan a bheith cruúir thu an raon rud eile a raibh like tú agrá Tásúla gom
no like rud tá caiimiid a bheith I gcónaí smaointe fé agus amatéirí iad na himráí ní daoine garamúla é tá sé ní dolas trathe gobar ar an luúan agus níhé sin má farsanta níl me se gurí caiimh nuas ar dóid agus tá nach chaint ínta ag me ahar bin me ahar I gcónaí rá is féidir le éon rud rá le faoi éon rud le éon denna agus an bailach a dearan tú é agus sin go sin ínta táhacht agus féidir le ceisna chur agus caihí tú ceisna cruúí a chur ach ní caiile bheith droféach le daoine agus ní caiith tú bheith caiimh nuas ar gcuoine caiid a bheith béach le daoine agus múna bheith agad dóibh agus mar nach bhfuil cumú clascéil garamúil like ní caihí na himmarí teach tugad chun Lordslaach an irid like ní léon gá níl si a conrú acu go caiise sin anú ach tuigann sé an nuairtá si caint lumpsan nó le iiriseir eile Tá caiinte na daoine saháile níl de caint lumpsan a rire Tá sé caiint na daoine saháile ach sílam mar sin ba cóga mé an iiriseir I gcónaí múnse leis an duine tá si corfaí agalah agus sin rud a bhí me si gcónaí like tá se chuna bheith jazz a daoine Tá mi chun ceis na cruúí go ach ní caiid a bheith droch fééis lo nó smartáilse nó a géirí a bheith choúil go níos mó ólas agat an ammartá ag daoine eile an fecin mu sin an range creaaltóirí fásta ach sin just an dói atá mise agus just sinam ghil sé táhacht a gur smíonn tú gur imróí amatéire éiad agus tá sé ag deanú níhil ní híon aon den muothar an far chun droch le bheith acu agus tá sé cinnal suas saganne ar ins na man conversáide a bheith meas acu dóibh siúd mar sin.
Sin é ar dúéis sin go fuir for like leiríonn roiint lu leúna nó ag cuaig imór amach chun cluthe duna a bheith acu agus gacu mar sin a caihí tú a chur an nuil den imór go bhfuil le éis tá mis an taobh céine leta to make chun jobbí aon of ditse freisin. Dé an taobh céine freagraí maithe an sin agus bé na freagraí níos fearr má
godéireach agus ní léon den a bhíí bheith droch féach agus tá sé just táhachtach a bheith just cinnal massa go a riine agus sin níhé sin just a sport just a saoil go generalta sílam héin éann a bíon droch lá ag daine agus beidir tagann si tras nach bhfuil siad ag for an mai ach Kid is mód an am like ben daine álín agus tá si brasás de Lordslaat agus man bhfuil daine géirí Lordslaat bhfuil fágéid go mai like ní fiú me droch lá hacu sin just fágéid, but kid is mód daine tá siad sás de Lordslaat agus a rééis níl si de glórt lumsa na réire ché go bhfuil si glórt lumsa ach tá si glórt na daine tá ag fécin dear an chlár agus sin just bhfuil si tá go glosin na daine sahála cad atá le ráig na banisteid ag na himróí.
Sinné agus dúirt tú níos lua san agalah dúirt tú faoi léim agus feic an nata fút an sin do pí a cóile ifigiúil de aine tá géirí a garm a hosnú amach na meán sport.
Go ddíireach agus is cinál an rud is cinál cadtá arí cadtá a rudí tá a géirí dhéanú agus lá sin agus nátó suasar de bhinlódí is cum a céine se tá tú nátó suasar de bhinlódí má tosa géirí rud ag an dhéanú Jenny agus nábéag fanachtar an láforfa agus níle lehéid an agus just máhéim agus tuigem níl me se rá tuigem gohfuil Jackraí agus sríanta beidir agsú le daine héh costas airgeid agus clyn agus gafard mar sinnda ach ní just go pásan de dús a ní roiisiigéirí a bheithem labam a bháis agus ag fécinn siar agus rá cén fá nach nearna mé sin agus cén fá nar tréal mé sin agus cén fá go fatis orm é a tréal. Agus an rud is mass is féidir tarla just ní ebroí sé agus joitar rud ag an eile nó goitú rascín rud a bhí tú Johnny ach cén sé aon den atá tuiste martá sin míon de chré agus tá sé rá leta go agus Jenny.
Sinné. Gráinne, bhí sé ionach deasbúla le muoine buchas as soachta am hurt to menu. Gráinne, thank you so much for your time. Absolute pleasure meeting you. Best of luck with the GAA Go coverage in 2024.
Gur míle maigad, Séamus.